everything you are building, the business, the body, the name people say with respect, can be taken from you tonight, and there is nothing you can do to stop it. A man born a slave, with a crippled leg, and not a single possession to his name, called that the best news you will ever receive. His name was Epictetus, and his reasoning was this: the moment you stop defending what was never yours, every ounce of force you have been wasting on the uncontrollable comes flooding back to you. Concentrated at last on the one territory where you are absolute. Sit with that, because it runs against everything you have been trained to believe. You have been taught that power means expanding what you can hold. More control, more contingency, more grip. But the man who taught this doctrine owned nothing. Not his time, not his home, not even his own body. And out of that stripped bare condition, he built the most durable theory of power in Western thought. A theory so precise that it survived 4 centuries to reach the desk of a Roman emperor, who copied it into his private notebook by candlelight. This is the story of the philosophy that turned a slave into the teacher of emperors. And it is the story of why the man who controls almost nothing, who has made his hard peace with that, is the most dangerous man in the room. Not because he wants less, because nothing can be held hostage against him anymore. By the end of this, you will know exactly how to become that man. You will know it in a way you can use tomorrow morning. Let me tell you where your exhaustion actually comes from, because it is not the work. You can work. You have proven that. The work is not what wakes you at 3 in the morning with your jaw tight and your chest full of static. What drains you is the guarding, the constant, low-grade vigilance over things that answer to no command of yours. You refresh the dashboard. You reread the review that stung. You run the imagined conversation with the client who went quiet. You watch the algorithm the way a sailor watches weather he cannot change, as if attention alone could bend it. You lie awake auditing the opinion of a man you have met twice, and you call all of this ambition, this scanning, this bracing, this defending, because it feels like caring, and caring feels like the engine that got you here. It is not ambition. It is occupation. You have marched your entire garrison out beyond your own walls and stationed it on land you do not own and never will. The market is not your land. The result is not your land. Another man's verdict on you is not your land. And every soldier you post on that foreign ground is a soldier missing from the one fortress that cannot fall. The only ground where your force actually lands and holds. Here is the reframe, and I want you to feel how physical it is. Somewhere out there, right now, 1,000 of your soldiers are dying slowly, defending territory that was never on your deed. Now, imagine calling every one of them home. Imagine that entire army, undivided, standing on the single acre that is genuinely, unconditionally yours. That is not retreat. That is the concentration of force. That is what happens when a man stops confusing what depends on him with what does not. When he learns the one cut that Epictetus spent his life teaching. The Stoics had a name for that cut, and once you see it, you cannot unsee it. They called it the Dichotomy of Control. A little handbook of his teachings, the Unconquerable, which means, fittingly, something you keep close at hand, like a blade, opens with a single passage that does all the work. In Elizabeth Carter's translation, verified against the standard text, it reads, "Some things are in our control and others not." Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and, in a word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, property, reputation, command, and, in one word, whatever are not our own actions. Read it slowly, because it is a scalpel, not a slogan. 2 columns. Only 2. And you belong to only one of them. In the first column, the things that are up to you, put your judgments, your effort, the standard you hold yourself to, the quality of your attention, what you choose to pursue, and what you choose to refuse. How you respond to any event that lands on you. That is the entire list, and it is enough. In the second column, the things that are not up to you, put your revenue, the reviews, your genetics, your face, your height, the body you were handed. Whether the launch lands, whether she stays, whether the room approves, whether the algorithm blesses you this quarter. Other people, all of them, entirely. And understand what Epictetus is actually claiming, because the modern world has softened it into a sedative. He is not saying you have more control over some things and less over others, sliding along a dial. He draws a hard binary. Greek phrase is ephemen, up to us, depends on us. A thing either depends on your choice or it does not. Your effort on the launch, yours completely. The launch's result, not yours, not at all, not 1%. What is in the first column he calls, in Carter's words, by nature free, unrestrained, unhindered. What is in the second he calls, weak, slavish, restrained, belonging to others. Confuse the two, he warns, and you will lament, you will be disturbed, and you will find fault both with gods and men. Now, because this channel lives or dies on getting these things exactly right, a correction you have probably needed for years. You have seen this line 10,000 times. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. It is stamped on posters. It is credited to Epictetus everywhere, and it appears in those words in none of his surviving texts. It is a modern paraphrase. A decent one, a fair gloss on the 5th chapter of the Enchiridion, but not a quote. So we will not pretend it is. What he actually wrote, we are about to grab with both hands. The rule here is simple. Real words or none. Here is the trap, and it is built precisely for men like you, the capable ones, the builders, which is exactly why it holds. Your instinct, the one that got you every early win, is to expand control. Something goes wrong? Add a system. Variable slips? Add a contingency. A risk appears on the horizon? Add monitoring. Add oversight. Add another layer of your attention spread thin across the surface of everything. It has worked so many times that you have concluded control is the answer, and more control must be the better answer. So you reach further and further out, trying to get your hands around outcomes, and you do not notice the moment your reach passes the border of what any hand can hold. That is the moment your strength becomes your fragility. Watch the mechanism, coldly, the way you would break down film after a loss. A bad quarter arrives, an event, neutral, information, and it does not inform you, it enrages you, because you had staked your steadiness on a number that was never taking orders from you. One critic speaks into the void, one voice among thousands, and it colonizes a full week of your inner life, because you had pledged your peace to a verdict you cannot control. The launch sits there, ready, and you cannot release it. You circle it, you polish it past the point of improvement, because somewhere you have decided that the outcome will be a referendum on your worth, and you cannot bear to hear the answer. See what has actually happened. Every one of those external things now holds a lien on your mind. The market can foreclose on your peace. A stranger's comment can garnish your focus. You have mortgaged your entire inner life to conditions you do not own. And now every fluctuation out there is a margin call in here. This is the part no one tells the ambitious man. The cage is self-built. No enemy did this. No rival trapped you. You handed over the keys, one outcome at a time, to everything you swore you would conquer. And you did it while calling it drive. The most dangerous cages are always the ones a strong man welds around himself, mistaking the bars for armor. To understand why this doctrine has teeth, you have to understand who sharpened it. Because it was not written in a villa by a man with options. Around the year 55 in Hierapolis, in what is now Turkey, a child was born into slavery. We do not even know the name his mother gave him. The name history keeps. Epictetus. It's not really a name at all. It is a Greek word. It means acquired. Property. He was called for his whole life by the fact that he was owned. He was carried to Rome and became the property of a man named Epictetus. And hold that name, because it tells you exactly how close this slave stood to the center of imperial power. Epictetus was himself a freedman and secretary to the Emperor Nero. He was in the room. He was one of the hands at the throat of the empire, and beneath him, as a piece of his household property, stood Epictetus. He was also lame. One leg did not work as it should, and here the story reaches for legend. So here I will slow down and tell you the truth about the truth, because this is where lesser tellings lie to you. The famous cinematic version goes like this. The master, in cruelty, twists the slave's leg. The slave, without heat, says only, "You will break it." The master keeps twisting until it snaps. And the slave says, evenly, "There. I told you it would break." It is a magnificent scene, and it may never have happened. That story survives only through a hostile writer named Celsus, quoted centuries later, while Epictetus's own ancient commentator Simplicius contradicts it flatly, saying the man was simply lame from early in life. No drama, no twisting hand. So we tell it as it is, a story that is told, not a fact that is known. On this channel, the legend gets labeled as legend. But you do not need the legend because the verified core is already stark enough to end the argument. Here is a man who did not own his own body. His time was another's. His labor was another's. His freedom, his homeland, his name, taken before he could speak. Every external good a human being can possess was, in his case, legally the property of someone else. And while still enslaved, still owned, he studied philosophy under a Stoic teacher named Musonius Rufus. And there he found the one thing the whole apparatus of Rome had somehow failed to confiscate. The faculty inside him that judged, that chose, that said yes and no. It was still his. It had always been his. No one had thought to take it, because no one could. That is the soil this philosophy grew in. Not comfort, not a throne. It was forged in the single human condition where everything external is stripped to the bone. And the man discovered that when everything is taken, something remains, and that something is the only thing that was ever really him. That is the standard this channel is built on. This channel exists for men who are building something real, and it runs on verified sources only. No invented quotes. No hustle noise. No borrowed wisdom dressed up as ancient. You just watched me refuse to hand you a fake quote and refuse to sell you a legend as fact. That is the whole promise, and I will keep making it. If you want your philosophy the way you want your training and your work, real, tested, load-bearing, then subscribe, and hold this channel to that standard. Not to feed an algorithm, to keep the bar high. Because what Epictetus did with his freedom, once he had it, is where this stops being history and starts becoming a weapon you can carry. When Nero fell, Epictetus was freed. And now watch the inversion complete itself, because this is the part that should stop you cold. A freed slave, lame, formerly named property, began to teach philosophy in Rome. He taught until the Emperor Domitian, suspicious of philosophers as men who could not be frightened and therefore could not be governed, expelled them all from Italy around the year 93. So Epictetus crossed the sea to Nicopolis in Greece and opened a school, and Rome's elite followed him across the water. Understand what that means. The senators, the men of rank, the sons of the powerful, men who owned estates and slaves and votes, men for whom Epictetus would once have been a piece of furniture, got on ships and sailed to a provincial town to sit on the floor and learn how to live from an ex-slave with a bad leg. He himself wrote nothing. He believed the living voice was the thing. But a student named Arian took down his words, and we have them today as the discourses and that handbook, the Enchiridion. The only reason you have heard his voice at all. And his ideas did not stop at the elite who came to him. They traveled up. Generations later, the most powerful man alive, Marcus Aurelius, Emperor of Rome, commander of the legions, a man who could order almost anything into or out of existence, sat down to write his private meditations, and he named Epictetus among the handful of minds that made him who he was, ranking him in the same breath as Socrates. Let that inversion stand fully upright. The man with the least external control in the entire story became the authority on power for the man with the most. The emperor studied the slave, because the slave had solved the one problem the emperor's power could not touch. How do you actually live this, as a man with a real day and real stakes in front of you? It starts before the day starts, each morning before you touch the work, before the first message, before the first rep, before you let a single input reach you. You draw the two columns. Not in your head, where they blur, on paper, or somewhere your eye can hold them. On the left, what is up to me today? The outreach I send, the reps I put in, the standard I refuse to drop below, the words I actually choose. On the right, what is not up to me. Whether they reply, whether the numbers move, whether the market wants this today, whether anyone claps, this takes 4 minutes. It re-anchors your entire nervous system to the correct territory before the day has a chance to drag you out onto foreign ground. You have decided in advance, in cold blood, where your effort belongs and where your peace does not. Then you add the second half, the part that makes ambition and serenity finally stop fighting each other. The Stoics acted always with reserve. The old word is Epictetus. Reserve clause. You commit fully to the action and you release the outcome in the same breath. Not, I will win this client. You cannot promise that. The client lives in the right-hand column, and you do not command him. Instead, I will make the finest possible case for this client, fate permitting. I will ship the best version I am capable of building. Rest is not mine to swear to. Feel the difference in your body, because it is enormous. Full commitment to the action. Zero attachment to the verdict. This is the archer with a perfect release. Everything he has goes into the aim, the draw, the discipline of the shot. and the instant the arrow leaves the string, he owns nothing further, because the wind and the target were never his. This is precisely how you swing with everything you have and still stop white-knuckling. The men who choke are the ones trying to steer the arrow in flight. The man who has already given the outcome away is free to strike with his whole strength, because he has nothing left to protect. The morning audit sets you up, but the day will hit back. A deal will die. A partner will fail you. Someone will criticize you in public. And for those moments, Epictetus hands you a second tool. This one is a direct quote from the 43rd chapter of the Enchiridion. Everything has two handles, one by which it may be carried, the other by which it cannot. Every event that lands on you can be picked up in two ways. There is a handle that lets you carry it, and a handle that guarantees you cannot. And you almost always, by pure reflex, reach for the wrong one. The client walks. The handle that cannot be carried. He should not have done that. He owed me. This is unfair. Grab that one, and you are holding a weight with no grip. You will strain and rage and get nowhere because you are demanding that a thing which already happened unhappen itself. Now, the handle that can be carried. What does this event ask of me? What do I tighten? What do I learn? What is the next right action that is actually mine to take? Same event, same loss. Entirely different weight in your hands. The partner fails you. Reach not for the handle of what he should have been, which you cannot lift, but for the handle of how you respond, which is light and always within reach. The public criticism, do not grab the handle of "they are wrong about me," a thing you cannot make them stop believing. Grab the handle of "is there one true thing here I can use?" And beyond that, their opinion is their property, not mine. And underneath all of it sits the line. The real one, from the 5th chapter of the Enchiridion, in Carter's translation, the words themselves, and not the poster paraphrase, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the principles and notions which they form concerning things." Read that as the mechanism, because it is one. The event is not what wounds you. The event is neutral. A client leaving is just a client leaving. A number falling is just a number falling. Between the event and your suffering, there is a hidden step where you assign it meaning, "This is a disaster. This means I am finished. This proves I was never good enough." That step is not in the event. That step is in you, and because it is in you, it is in the left-hand column. It is yours. The man who learns to catch that step, to see it happen and question it before he signs off on it, converts every setback from a verdict into data. He stops outsourcing his mood to his dashboard because he has found the one place where the meaning is actually made. Now the objection you have been holding since the start, and it is a fair one. Does this not make a man soft? If I release every outcome, do I not stop wanting, stop pushing, go slack? Epictetus answers it with an image. And it is the image that saves your ambition whole. In the Discourses, he describes a skilled ball player. "Watch him," Epictetus says. He gives everything to the ball in flight, his whole body, his full attention, every reflex firing, complete and total commitment to the play. And yet he knows the entire time that the ball itself is worth nothing, a little leather and air. The ball is not the point. The playing is the point. His skill is the point. The ball is merely what makes the skill possible. That is the whole of it. The externals are the ball. Your revenue, your valuation, your follower count, the number on the bar in the gym, the ranking, the exit. Those are the ball, nothing in themselves. And your play, your effort, your standard, your craft, the excellence of how you move. Your play is the game. You give everything to the ball. You do not give yourself to it. This is where ambition survives the philosophy fully intact, and it is why this is not resignation dressed in a toga. You do not want less, you want correctly. You still chase the number, hard, with total intensity. But you have understood, finally, that the number was never the prize. The prize was always the man playing. Effort total, outcome loose. That is not a smaller life than the one you are living. It is the same fire, aimed at last at something that can actually take the heat. But there is a floor beneath all three practices, and until you stand on it, the practices are only techniques. Epictetus had one central word for that floor, and it is the key to the whole vault. Prohairesis. It is usually rendered will, or choice, or moral character, but it means something more exact than any of those. Prohairesis is your faculty of choice, the part of you that takes in an impression, weighs it, and either assents to it or refuses it. It is the chooser behind the choices, and Epictetus's radical claim in the first book of the Discourses is that this one faculty is the single thing in the entire universe that is unconditionally, unconquerably yours. Everything else, everything, can be reached by force, luck, decay, or other men. This cannot. Chains reach the leg, not the will. Illness reaches the body, not the choosing self. Only you can touch it, and only you can surrender it. Here is how he put it, in the words George Long gave us from the first book of the Discourses: "You may fetter my leg, but my will not even Zeus himself can overpower." Understand the scale of that claim from the mouth of a man who had actually worn fetters. Not even the king of the gods can reach the faculty of your choice. Not the market, not the injury, not the investor, the competitor, the algorithm, the collapse, the betrayal. It can take the body, the property, the reputation, the whole right-hand column, down to the last coin. And the chooser remains untouched, because it was never out there where they could get to it. Now hear what this actually asks of you, because it is not what the soft reading claims. It is not lower your ambitions, it is relocate them. Take the enormous drive that has been aimed at outcomes, at things that can be taken from you in a single night, and aim it instead at the excellence of the choosing self, at the quality of your judgment, at the steadiness of your will under pressure, at who you are when the impression hits, and you decide whether to assent. Make that your target. Make the man himself your life's project. Because a man whose ambition is aimed at his own prohairesis cannot be defeated by anything external, there is no angle of attack. The only way he can lose is to abandon the post himself, to hand over his own assent, to say, "You have made me small," when nothing outside him has that authority unless he grants it. That is the power the title promised you, not control over the world. You were never going to get that, and chasing it was the whole disease. Sovereignty over the 1 square foot that is genuinely yours, held so completely that the world loses its grip on you entirely. Now I have to stop you before you turn this into the wrong kind of strength, because the culture around you will push you straight toward it. It will whisper that if you control only yourself, then you need no one. Detachment means the cold, sealed self, the lone wolf, the fortress of ice. It will tell you Epictetus's serenity is a wall against other people. It is the exact opposite, and he was explicit about it. Epictetus taught what scholars call role ethics. You are not a self-floating free of all others. You are a son, a brother, a friend, a citizen, a builder standing among other builders, a father, maybe, and playing those roles well. Showing up, keeping your word, carrying your share, loving the people who are yours, is itself inside your control. Is squarely in the left-hand column. Your duties are not the enemy of your freedom. Performing them with excellence is one of the highest exercises of it. And the man's own life sealed the argument. His commentator Simplicius reports that in old age, Epictetus, the philosopher of detachment, the man who had reduced his needs to almost nothing, took in a child that a friend in poverty was going to abandon to die and raised it, bringing a nurse into his household to help. Read that carefully. The man most free of attachment to outcomes chose, freely, to become responsible for another human life. Detachment from results was never detachment from people. It was the very thing that made room for them. Because here is what serenity actually does for the people who depend on you. A man whose peace is mortgaged to outcomes is useless to the ones he loves. He is too busy defending his fragile inner weather, too reactive, too consumed by the right-hand column to be present for anyone. But the man who has planted his stability on the one ground that cannot be shaken becomes the steadiest thing in every room he enters. He does not need his people to manage his moods. He can absorb the shock so they do not have to. His calm is not distance from them. It is exactly what makes him worth standing next to. The strong man's serenity is not a wall. It is a shelter. So we come back to where we began. Yes, everything you are building can be taken from you tonight. The business, the body, the name people say with respect. All of it lives in the right-hand column. All of it is on loan, and none of it was ever truly yours to keep. That is still true. Nothing in this has made it less true. But now the flip completes itself, and you can feel the difference in what it does to you. Let them take it. Let the quarter collapse, the deal die, the crowd turn, the body fail with age as every body eventually does. When the externals are stripped away, every one of them, the builder remains. And the builder was always the asset. Not the thing he built. The man who can build. That they cannot reach. Epictetus made the point with something small. An iron lamp was stolen from his home one night. A good lamp, a thing of value. And he simply replaced it with one of cheap clay, remarking, in effect, "Tomorrow the thief will find only an earthenware lamp to steal." He had lost nothing that touched him, because he had never mistaken the lamp for himself. A man loses only what he believes he owns. Take everything a man thinks is his. And if he has learned this one cut, you will find you have taken nothing of him at all. So here is the whole of it, and then I will leave you in the quiet where this kind of thing belongs. Tomorrow morning, before the day reaches you, draw the two columns. Put your effort, your standard, your judgment, your response, your choosing self on the left. And guard that ground with everything you have, because it is the only ground you will ever actually hold. Put the results, the opinions, the markets, the outcomes on the right, and release them, fully, the way you release the arrow the instant it leaves the string. Guard the one, release the other. That is your power. It always was.